Hi everyone, Dr. Sunil Dan. Welcome to another video. Well, we have a different format here. What's going on? I have the good old whiteboard here, and I am going to be explaining a crucial health concept to you. And it centers around insulin resistance, which I talk about a lot. And when I teach people, when I coach people, when I do my group coaching, I view a journey towards better health and well-being for so many hundreds of millions of people in terms of improving insulin sensitivity. And we are going to go over that here. Have you heard that term before from any doctor? Think about your health and well-being journey, both physical and mental health, in terms of improving insulin sensitivity. So here we have the crucial concept here, insulin resistance. And the journey is going to be towards becoming more insulin sensitive. Excuse my doctor's handwriting there, but it's all about becoming more insulin sensitive. So let's back up for a moment. What's going on? Well, for hundreds of millions of people out there right now, insulin resistance is the main driver of most of their medical problems. This is the true pandemic. Hundreds of millions of people, and unfortunately, with regards to the medical establishment and the medical paradigm, we live in complete clown world. There's a complete ignorance, maybe a lot of that is accidental. There's not proper education. But I think a lot of it is also deliberate because a lot of profit is made from insulin resistance in so many people. And what is causing insulin resistance? Well, in a nutshell, basically a poor lifestyle. Insulin is spiking in so many people, much more than it should, much more than our grandparents and great grandparents. And as a result, like any system, people eventually become resistant to whatever it is we're talking about. So in this case, insulin keeps on spiking, the body becomes more resistant to it, the cells in the body, and more insulin keeps getting secreted to produce the same effect. So, what causes these constant insulin spikes? Well, a poor diet, a diet which is high in foods which spike insulin, predominantly carbohydrates, sugars, and processed foods, which people are consuming in vast quantities. These are very calorie dense foods. And the problem with constant insulin spikes is that eventually, because insulin is an anabolic hormone, it will lead to a multitude of medical problems, including increased fat storage and increased inflammation within the body. And actually, a huge proportion of everything we see, from high blood pressure, high cholesterol, other inflammation, is driven by insulin resistance. So, I want you to view your health journey in terms of becoming more sensitive to insulin. So, how can you become more sensitive to insulin? How can you stop those insulin spikes, especially if you're overweight, obese? The chances are that you have insulin resistance. And this isn't always picked up on the standard blood tests. The medical profession is absolutely terrible at diagnosing insulin resistance. And we've talked about that before, and we'll talk about it again. But I want to focus on how you can become more insulin sensitive. So, of course, the main cornerstone is your diet. No surprises there. Hippocrates knew this 2,500 years ago. Your diet, your nutrition is the cornerstone of your health and well being. You are what you eat. Think about this. Every cell in your body, every thought that you have is powered by what you eat. So, how can you stop these constant insulin spikes? Well, you want to sensibly, I'm not saying you go down to zero, but be mindful that carbohydrates, sugars, processed foods, which are often high in sugars, in carbs, in other substances, seed oils, etc., will spike your insulin. And they will do so much more so than protein, natural proteins, and natural fats spike your insulin much less than carbs and sugars. So be very mindful with every meal. How much bread are you eating in your sandwich? How much pasta are you eating? Are you eating a lot of sugars? Are you eating and drinking a lot of sodas, which are very high in sugars? All of these constant insulin spikes will contribute to insulin resistance. So every time you eat a meal, say a simple meals are the best meals, like a protein and two vegetables at the side, non-starchy vegetables, you are not going to suffer an insulin spike. So you're going to be contributing to your body becoming more insulin sensitive. Every time you have a good, sensible, nutritious meal, which is higher in protein and lower in the carbs and sugars, then you will be contributing to a life of better insulin sensitivity. We mentioned processed foods. Unfortunately, these are the majority of foods nowadays that people consume in many countries like the USA and UK. Be careful. Basically, 80 to 90% of everything in a grocery store is complete and utter trash, rubbish food. You are far better off cooking from scratch. If you do buy something which is in a package, then look at the ingredient label. They fool so many people nowadays. These trillion-dollar food corporations are giving you food which is going to keep spiking your insulin levels and lead to insulin resistance. So the fewer ingredients, the better. If you don't recognize the ingredient, then don't consume the food. It's that simple. And once you get into the habit of reading ingredient labels, it's very hard to get out of it. So we already mentioned the foods which are less likely to spike your insulin levels, very simple foods that many people grew up eating. I'll say again, you can't go wrong with a protein and 2 vegetables at the side. And again, I'm not saying you can never consume carbs and sugars, but if insulin resistance is a problem for you, if you're already overweight, obese, have things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol because of insulin resistance, then you have to be mindful. Foods should spike your insulin levels less. Other things you can do: intermittent fasting, also called time restricted eating. If you only eat during a certain window of the day, then obviously your insulin levels will be low for a longer period of time. That is going to contribute to you becoming more insulin sensitive. A lot of people eat during a 6 to 8 hour window. You can do whatever works for you. Obviously, don't change anything abruptly, but start thinking of everything you eat in terms of, is this going to spike my insulin levels? Hey, if I wait a couple of hours longer before I eat, it's going to keep my insulin levels low. You will be surprised at how quickly this adds up to massive changes over time. If you start thinking in terms of that instead of purely calories, I mean, calories, of course, they are important, but many other aspects to how you eat and live life are also equally, if not more important. And I've already touched on drinks. Now, a lot of people drink their sugar, drink their calories. Be careful. You can't go wrong with water, simple water. Add a tiny bit of lemon or flavoring to it if you want. I will say that if you're going to go for soda, diet sodas, I still don't completely approve of them, but they're going to be better than the really sugary sodas. I want you to keep in mind that in your whole bloodstream, there is only about a teaspoon of sugar, a few grams of sugar. Sugar is very toxic to your body. That's why immediately when you eat a sugar load or carbs, your pancreas secretes insulin and it's trying to bring that down. So diet is the first fundamental cornerstone of your journey towards insulin sensitivity. And I will say, for anyone who is out there who is interested in this journey of insulin resistance reversal, if you know you are insulin resistant, whether or not you have an official diagnosis of pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, and you would like to learn more, go into more detail, I do have a blueprint course, the MetThrive method that I created. The details are in the link down below, and this will give you an overview of what you need to do. I've got a guide and some videos that you can watch as you go about this very, very important journey. So check that out down below. Okay, next we have exercise. Of course, our bodies are built to move. Unfortunately, people move far less than they did a few years ago. So let's put that over here. Exercise. And I want you to really think about this. How much are you moving during the day? Most people don't even walk enough. I mean, start with that. I'm not a big fan of putting a arbitrary number on things, but at least 10,000 steps if you can do that. Move, go for walks, especially after meals. That can really help. And I would like you to engage in regular activity. Now, I have the 1 hour a day rule. I exercise for 1 hour a day. And I personally focus on muscle strengthening because muscles are very physiologically active. I'm not saying you need to become a bodybuilder. That's not my goal either. But I do want to be as strong as possible. I want to maintain muscle mass because after a certain age, actually beyond your late 20s, muscle mass naturally declines. So if you can do gentle resistance training, you can start off, if you're a beginner, with some light weights, some dumbbells. You can use a barbell. You can even use exercise resistance bands or body weights. There are lots of exercises that you can do. Cardio, of course, is important. We mentioned walking. Brisk walking would be moderate intensity activity. But if you can do more than that, I run at least 3 or 4 times a week. Cycling is also good, swimming, dancing, so many things you can do. But do think in terms of muscle strengthening, regular muscle strengthening, and alternate your upper with your lower body. Also exercise or strengthen your core. That is very important, your core muscles around your pelvis and lower back. Okay, what else is important? Because it's, of course, diet and exercise are the first things people think of on the health and well-being journey, but there are other things as well. And I know a lot of people that are ticking all of the right boxes and then they're getting dragged down by certain things they don't think of. So let's think about a couple of these here. So how can we forget in today's society about stress? Stress is everywhere, absolutely everywhere these days. It is ubiquitous. And the problem with stress is that the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, if they are consistently high, they will wreak havoc on your system. They'll take up your blood sugars as well at extreme levels. But if somebody is very stressed, it makes improving their insulin sensitivity very difficult indeed. So this is highly unique. When I talk to people about this, when I coach people, it's something that everybody kind of has to figure out for themselves. What are the sources of stress in your life? What can you do to address these? Can you address them? Is there something which is fixable? And then what will take your mind away from this constant stress? Highly unique to you again. It could be something like meditation. It could be exercise. For me personally, exercise is a great stress reliever. It could be something like going for a walk in nature. It could be engaging in your favorite hobby. It could be watching your favorite comedy show. But remember that stress is a core pillar of health and well-being and becoming more insulin sensitive. Next, sleep. Again, most people are not getting enough sleep. For most people, that is between 6 to 9 hours. Who sleeps for 9 hours every night? But for most people, there's a sweet spot. Everybody knows their sweet spot. I would say my sweet spot is probably 6.5 to 7 hours, and I'm good with that. And when you know what your sweet spot is, endeavor to get a good restful sleep every single night. It's when your body recovers, when it replenishes. There are lots of studies out there of people who work in shifts. They do a lot of night shifts and they may be doing other things right, but they still end up insulin resistant. Make sure your sleep environment is good. Make sure you have a cool room. Make sure you have a winding down routine at the end of the night. All very important. So I wanted to get you started thinking about your health and well-being journey. For most people out there, this is a journey of becoming more insulin sensitive. And think everything you do in your life. Okay, I'm going to avoid that dessert today. Okay, that's going to help make me a little bit more insulin sensitive. Okay, I'm going to walk a little bit extra. I'll park a little bit further from the grocery store. I'll walk a little bit more. I'm slowly contributing to becoming more insulin sensitive. I go for a walk after meals. I go to the gym. Okay, I'm going to eat more protein. Think in terms of everything you do becoming sensitive to insulin, because this is a true pandemic. Hundreds of millions of people out there insulin resistant. And the tragedy is that this can start to be reversed in a matter of weeks. I work with so many people and basically their lives are transformed. So this is a journey. Hopefully you can still see this on the whiteboard. That is well worth undertaking. Becoming more insulin sensitive. Thanks everyone for watching. Dr. Sunil Dan. Check out the links in the description below, including to my method and my blueprint for becoming less insulin resistant and holistic natural fat loss, which goes hand in hand. Most people, as they naturally lose body fat, they want to go the natural route, will become more insulin sensitive. Hit the like button if you like this video and the subscribe button for more similar videos in the future. We will speak again very soon.